Welcome to Laker Central, where I discuss the most famous basketball team on the planet with the biggest, brightest, and up-and-coming voices in sports and culture. Before I forget, make sure you go to lakercentral.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page, sign up for our newsletter. Subscribers are eligible for special giveaways and content, so make sure you do that. Shout out to Laker Chatter. They won my Lakers dad hat giveaway. I've got one on right now, as you can see. And shout out to Jeff of the Code of Conduct pod. I was on his podcast. He's a Laker fan, so give them a follow. What's up, Phil, man? Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
I'm good, man. A lot of late-breaking news last night, right? Internet was going wild, I guess, when anything happens Lakers-related. So we got the word Avery Bradley is not going to join the Lakers when they go down to Orlando. Bradley was one of the players that was outspoken about a number of reasons why he might not want to return. And then we heard that he's decided not to return. His son has struggles a bit recovering from respiratory illnesses. And if you've been under a rock the last 3 months, that's exactly what COVID does. It attacks your respiratory system, among other things, but certainly puts a strain on that. And so there was some fear that maybe his son wouldn't even be approved to come into the bubble at Disney World. So, Phil, what are your immediate, or now that you've had some time to digest it, what are your thoughts on Avery Bradley not rejoining with the team?
My first thought was that it's really understandable because things are getting kind of wild down in Florida. When it comes to COVID, you don't know how bad it's going to be in 3 months, which is how long that you would have to be in the bubble, basically, especially if you're playing with the Lakers, who are likely to make a deep, deep playoff run. So, yeah, if his son couldn't go there, it makes perfect sense to me that he would decide to sit out, especially because, as you were saying, he was one of the players along with that group that was on the call with Kyrie, who was really choosing to make social justice their primary priority right now, as opposed to basketball. So it's not too surprising. From a basketball standpoint, it's kind of a bummer, but you can't really blame him for the decision.
No, you can't. And he's a major cog in what we do. I mean, before we started recording right now, I tweeted out that a lot of people laughed at us for signing Bradley in the offseason, and now those same folks are saying, what are we going to do without him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, he very much is an important piece of the team. He's one of the starting guards. The Lakers already have a small rotation in terms of body size, but then it's not like they have a deep roster of all these guards that they can just throw in there anyway, which is one of the reasons they signed Dion Waiters. And at one point, we're even talking to Darren Collison. But Bradley has started in 44 of the Lakers' 49 games. So if you look at the roster, just how it stands, we'll get to J.R. Smith in a minute, but just the roster, who would you plug in to replace him?
I think in the starting spot, you're probably going to see KCP in there because what Bradley really brings to the starting unit that is irreplaceable or most important is point of attack defense. He is the guy who you really want guarding the ball. Danny Green is a great team defender, but he gets blown by sometimes when he's guarding the ball handler. So you really want someone who can dig into whoever's got the ball, and KCP can do that. He's got the lateral quickness and the sort of sneaky length to frustrate ball handlers at that size. So I think he's the one who's going to jump into that role. And on the bench, it's kind of a free-for-all. There's a chance for both Waiters and Caruso to make really, really big minutes claims, and it'll be interesting to see who ends up getting those.
Yeah, I mean, and shout out to Vince, who just posted this. He said Chris Broussard is picking the Clippers now that the Lakers don't have Avery Bradley. I don't listen to very much of what Chris Broussard says these days. Whatever. We're going to be in the middle of hot take Twitter and hot take TV while anything that happens with the Lakers. But no, just looking at the roster, you're right. My first thought is KCP. I know that there are Laker fans that are saying give Caruso his shot. There are Laker fans saying give THT his shot. You know, Taylor Horton-Tucker's not ready. I'm sorry, folks. Like, there is a reason why he has not been in the Lakers with basically the varsity squad. There's a reason for that, and there's no reason to rush him. There's time. So it's set Taylor to the side for a moment. But KCP, that's who I would plug in if you're just looking at who's on the roster as it stands. This is KCP's third season with the Lakers, and for 2 years, fans were like, "Get rid of him. We hate him. He's overpaid." Right. And this third season, he has found his groove with this Lakers team. I was looking at his numbers last night. He's shooting a career best 47% from the field and a career best 39% from three. Now, his attempts from three are down a little bit. Last season, he was shooting around 5 a game. This season, it's around 3. But he probably needs to be around 3. I don't think he needs to be a 5 or 6 3-point guy, attempt guy in a game. But if you're just looking at who's on the roster, it's absolutely KCP. The Lakers have some decisions to make. We're already hearing J.R. Smith might be their preferred candidate. He was someone that they talked to and worked out for them when they were trying to decide who they were going to bring in, whether it be him, Dion Waiters. They chose Dion, who we're all still waiting to see what he looks like. But Smith impressed them at the workout. He's got familiarity with LeBron. He played with him in Cleveland, despite all the memes and stuff going around about some of the issues that JR had in the finals. He's 6'6". He would be the biggest guard on our team outside of Danny Green, who's 6'7". What are your thoughts on JR coming to LA?
My biggest question about J.R. Smith is he in shape? He hasn't played really in 2 years. He played 11 games, I think, with Cleveland last year.
Mm-hmm.
But he's getting older for an NBA guard, and he hasn't played in a couple of years. So seeing if he is sort of game ready, I think would be a very interesting thing. If he is, he's got some of the things that I think we need. I would sort of prefer to have someone who I trusted a little bit more as a ball handler than J.R. Smith, which is one of the ways that KCP has improved this year. He has not been a reliable ball handler, but now they've actually had him running those horn sets that they run for Avery Bradley. Mm-hmm. They've been running them with KCP, and he's been, give him 2 or 3 simple reads to make, and he's been much better than he was in the past. But I would rather have someone who can both space and distribute, but the options are kind of limited at this point, so you have to take what you can get.
Yeah, I mean, last night I jokingly said, wouldn't it be crazy if the Lakers signed Darren Collison? And, then people were saying, well, he's not in shape, he's not going to play. It was a joke, folks. It was a joke. But, look, beggars can't be choosers, man. And we have suffered from lack of ball handling all season long, despite the fact the Lakers have the second best record in the NBA. LeBron has been amazing. We expect LeBron to be LeBron, but in order to take some of the pressure off for him, always having to initiate the offense, they have Rondo, who is obviously a capable ball handler, but he falls short in so many other ways at this stage of his career that if you're going to plug him in that starting lineup, there's just all kinds of spacing issues, defensive issues. And not that Bradley was a spacer, but I would say that one, he's a much better defender than Rondo. And I think Bradley, which a lot of the analytic guys don't like, but he stayed in his lane. He was a jump shooter, mid-range guy. He didn't force the 3. But Rondo, on the other hand, I have nothing against him. To me, he wouldn't be the answer. Caruso, he's somewhat of a capable ball handler, but he's susceptible to pressure, and certainly going up against someone like the Clippers, who we may end up meeting in the playoffs. Pat Bev loves to talk, but also loves the ball pressure, and I don't know if Caruso is ready for that. There are folks saying that let's just go big and insert Kuzma in the starting lineup. I wouldn't do that either. The Lakers need to go for another guard. They really do. And when you look at Smith, man, it's been, what, a year and a half, 2 years, I think. I think he only played 11 games last year in Cleveland. And then he was kind of banished, if you will. And so I like JR, man. The Lakers have this running theme this year of taking guys that the rest of the league laughs at, right? So I mentioned Avery Bradley. People said that he was finished. He wasn't good when he was with the Clippers. They said when he had better numbers in Memphis, it was kind of a flash in the pan, but he has never been the same since Boston. He comes to LA, proves that he's capable, right? Dwight Howard, everybody laughed at, right? No one thought, Lakers fans didn't think they would bring him back to LA after what happened when he was here. And he's been a capable big on the rotation. Someone that also might sit out, and we'll get to him in a moment, but DeMarcus Cousins, even though he didn't play this year, but there are a lot of reports that he had great relationship with the folks in the Lakers front office. some of the other players. He obviously, I believe, is still rehabbing with the Lakers, even though he's not officially signed by them. He's rehabbing on their dime. JaVale, I mean, the Lakers have this theme this year of just come here and do your job, and LeBron and AD will do the heavy lifting. And I feel like that's been good for them. I would imagine JR is tired of seeing the Hennessy memes, tired of seeing the meme of him. I think was it shooting the ball in the wrong way or like if he comes to LA, man. I mean, this is an opportunity for him to figure out, can he right the wrongs, I guess, of the past, right?
Yeah, I remember you were talking about Avery Bradley and Dwight when they were signed. I remember in training camp when guys were coming out like LeBron and Kuzma, and everyone was saying, Avery Bradley's the MVP of training camp. Like, I love the energy that Dwight Howard's bringing. And everyone was like laughing it off, like, yeah, right, they're pumping these guys up. And then the season started and everyone was like, oh crap, they were serious. Like, these guys came to play.
Yep.
And there's a chance that something similar could happen with JR. That's the reason that I've been so excited to see Dion Waiters on the court. Because we know that he likes to have a ball handling role, but the thing that he's proven while he's in Miami is that he can also play off ball, which means you can play him with LeBron.
Right.
As well as use him as a secondary ball handler with the second unit. And I think that gives him a potential to be a really key piece in the rotation at the sort of guard small wing slot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Dion brings something to the Lakers that they really didn't have, and that's just a ball handler in the guard position that can just score. I mean, Dion, he's one of those microwave guys, and once he gets going, and he does not lack confidence. How do you feel about the Lakers potentially having, Dion and JR, two guys that forget the personality stuff? I think that they're fine players. Everyone has their personal issues, but just on the court, you're bringing on two guys that haven't played very much in the last year. I mean, how do you integrate them into a team that is very much in the thick of a playoff race in the midst of a pandemic and this whole bubble thing in Orlando?
Well, the pre-existing relationship with LeBron helps. And I think that the guys in the NBA probably know each other enough. It's such a close-knit fraternity that I don't think personalities will be too much of an issue, especially because the authority structure in that locker room is so set. Everyone knows who is in charge. And that really, really helps in terms of people being comfortable in their roles. I think Dion and JR can play together quite well, actually. That's a good thing about JR Smith, is that guys whose offensive skill sets are mostly off-ball are pretty easy to plug in because you don't need to create possessions for them. You can just run them off a screen and let him do his thing. And that's where he thrives.
What are your thoughts if Dwight decides to sit out? Where do we go at that point?
My personal preference for that would be to actually use Markieff Morris as a backup five at a lot of those minutes, because he's strong enough to guard those guys respectably, and he can space the floor. He doesn't clog the lane at all. And I really like lineups where they have had LeBron, Morris, Anthony Davis, and then a couple of shooting wings like Green or KCP. Those lineups are incredibly versatile at both ends, and they've been really, really successful.
Yeah, I like what Markieff brings. I like him a lot. I know a lot of Lakers fans wanted his brother Marcus, but I think Markieff has done just fine in the limited amount of time that we've got to see him as a Laker. Anthony Davis would undoubtedly have to play more center if Dwight sits out. I know AD doesn't like doing that, but I always figured in the playoffs the Lakers might go small a little more often anyway, and AD maybe more so at the five. So that's something I've been thinking about, and I want to get your opinion on this. So we heard like a few days ago that DeMarcus Cousins was going to be done for the season and just rehab. Then we heard, hold on, his agent said he has not made a decision. Do you think that that's in any relation to if Dwight sits out, DeMarcus could potentially come back for the Lakers?
I think he's keeping his options open. I still would doubt, even if that spot becomes available, that he would take it as opposed to continuing his rehab. But I think that his agent and probably him got together and thought, well, it's a little too early to rule it out just yet, especially with Dwight still in limbo and as far as the public is concerned. So it just seems like a smart wait and see kind of move.
Yeah, I think with this team, man, I've said this on a number of other episodes, but this team is built for adversity. You've got LeBron James and Anthony Davis, two of the top 5 players in the NBA. LeBron has seen everything, right? And then you've got a team of all veterans. So even if they have to add some veterans that, maybe they make some mistakes every now and again, or maybe they have a couple off games. This team has got, such good camaraderie. The front office is as stable a front office as we've seen since Jerry West was probably in town. And that's not to discredit Mitch Kupchak, who I think was actually a great GM that probably didn't get the credit he deserved. And he became a bit of a laughing stock with stuff that was going on with Jim Buss and all that stuff. But Mitch was a fabulous GM who learned under Jerry. But the Lakers are stable right now. And what's really funny about that stability is what's happening with Jason Kidd. So in the offseason, right, I know you remember, Phil. We were going to talk to Monty Williams, Ty Lue. There was rumors that Ty Lue was basically in the bag. He was a LeBron guy. He's an ex-Laker, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't happen, right? The Lakers, they wanted to give him a shorter contract from what I understand. Whatever. He doesn't become the head coach, right? And then you start hearing the Jason Kidd rumors. And Stephen A. Smith goes on TV and says the Lakers actually wanted to hire Jason Kidd, but they didn't want to deal with the public backlash because of some things in his background. So they hire Frank Vogel that people laugh at, and they say, well, okay, Vogel's going to come to town. Sure, he was great in Indiana, but that was years ago. The game has evolved. And, oh, my God, he's got to hire Jason Kidd. Kidd's going to stab him in the back. Well, fast forward, 6 months or so, and Jason Kidd has been integral to the Lakers' success. I believe he's had a lot to do with LeBron moving more to point guard. And now the Knicks are looking at Jason Kidd. I mean, it's funny how this works when no one wanted to touch him just last summer. And now all of a sudden he's up for one of the most popular franchises in the world. I mean, how does that happen?
Well, and his head coaching stints have also not ended harmoniously.
Yeah.
In Brooklyn, he blew that whole situation up. He basically got run out of town in Milwaukee in spite of Giannis's attempt to lobby for him. So he seems to be a coach that's very popular with players and not really anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be an interesting fit in New York, actually, because I don't think that anyone who is playing for the Knicks has a very high opinion of Mr. Dolan or the way that the team has been run. So maybe having a player's coach as a buffer would be beneficial for them. Either way, I do think it's very funny that Jason Kidd's next head coaching job probably will not be for the Lakers, and I'm very pleased for him. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, Leon Rose, he's now running the Knicks, and just today they brought in Worldwide West, another super agent, to be a part of that front office, and so the Knicks, they're going in a different direction. I have no idea how hands-on Dolan is right now as opposed to how he used to be, but I always tell people this, man. If you're a player and you're kind of on the fringes and you come to LA and you do well, you'll stick around in the NBA. If you're a coach and you're on the fringes, you come to LA and the Lakers do well, you'll get another job. I mean, that's just what happens when you coach or you play for the Lakers. And so I do think you're right. I think a lot of players respect Kidd. I think 99% of all the NBA players respect Jason Kidd. He's absolutely one of the best point guards of all time. He's second all time in assists with over 12,000 assists. I mean, the man, he was amazing when he was in his prime and won a championship. You're going to see this thing. If Kidd ends up in New York, God bless him, if that's what he wants to do. But he is the highest paid assistant coach in the NBA. And there are some rumors that the Knicks might think that he could somehow lure Giannis to New York because of their relationship. And maybe the Lakers think the same. I don't know. But one thing I do know, I don't think any player, particularly a superstar, is choosing a team because of the coach. Now, that certainly plays a role, and who you play for plays a role, but there are other things that we know players now find more important: max contracts, the city that the team plays in, other business ventures that they can enter in based on playing for that team. So I think Kidd would have to have a seriously strong relationship with Giannis to go there. I mean, and no matter what, I mean, I think Kidd's record, I just had it up. Kidd's coaching record is 183 and 190. So to your point, he hasn't had a great coaching stint at all. all eyes will be on him in New York if he does go there. And if they bring Giannis there, all eyes will certainly be on Giannis. And for a franchise that has not been good for basically 30 years, I mean, I know they went to the finals in 99, the lockout season, but they haven't been good for the better part of 30 years. That's a lot of pressure to bring in Kidd, then try to get him to bring in Giannis. So I just find it funny that the narrative on Kidd is completely flipped, it seems.
Yeah, and it does seem like a characteristically Knicks move to try to put a lot of eggs in the Kidd Giannis basket.
Yeah.
Just because they very recently, I know it was a different general management team, but they also recently put all of their eggs in the KD Kyrie basket. And we all saw how that went when they basically traded Kristaps Porzingis for Dennis Smith and a bag of potato chips. So it's a high risk, high reward move. You think if they make enough of them, eventually one of them will pay off, but it is the Knicks, so you never know.
I say the Knicks like the Nick. I mean, they can't get it right, man. And there's an old Jay-Z line, I think, that even a garbage can gets a steak. And the Knicks, they have not gotten a steak in a really long time. I mean, they did have Carmelo and Amari there in their primes, but I think that was the last time they won 50 games, but that didn't really work out successfully, even after they gave up basically everything to get Melo. But I don't know. If Kidd goes there, more power to him. If he stays with the Lakers, the way he's been right now, he's behind the scenes. You don't hear a lot from him. The players clearly like him. If he decides to stay in that capacity and the Lakers want him, great. But Frank Vogel has done such a great job this year, not just on the court, but off the court. He has handled the LA media. I mean, maybe Phil Jackson's the last guy, and Phil's a different breed, the way he jabs the media and the way he deals with things. But, Frank Vogel has handled the media wonderfully. And he's handled having two superstars, just in a way that I don't know if we could have asked for a better start for Vogel. I mean, what do you think?
No, we couldn't have. And shameless plug time. This morning I had a piece go up at Lakers UK outlining his Coach of the Year case. So be sure to check that out.
He's got my vote.
Yeah, but he really seems like he's approaching this from a sort of egoless perspective. Which I think is how he has to do it when he's got two superstars and just the bears of the Los Angeles media on top of him all the time. Like the very direct, simple, honest, collaborative approach that he's put together has not just earned him the respect of the players and buy-in from the players, but it really has shielded him from a lot of the bad press that we thought was going to come his way.
I mean, remember over the summertime, we heard that Kirtland and Rambis were running the team. We heard Jason Kidd was going to backstab Vogel. We heard Rob didn't know anything about the salary cap. And now all of a sudden,
turned Lionel Hollins into an assassin in the media.
Man, Vogel's now a Coach of the Year candidate. I think Rob Pelinka is absolutely a Executive of the Year candidate as well. And you don't hear a peep. The way the Lakers run things now, as opposed to how Magic ran things. And this isn't me to make fun of Magic. He's one of the greatest players of all time, a legend. I've got a Lakers Magic jersey in my closet right next to me. But obviously he wasn't great as the Lakers president of basketball operations, and everything leaked all the time. And you hear nothing from Rob Pelinka. I mean, he goes to games, he sits kind of in that little tunnel area, he walks away. It's not about him, and he could very well make it about him, but he doesn't. And so the Lakers have cleaned up this franchise, and I'm excited to see what they do in Orlando. You mentioned earlier the cases in Orlando are going up and a number of other places as well. I think it was just earlier today, Jared Dudley said Disney employees can still kind of come and go, which I can't believe the NBA has not stopped that or not, jumped in and said, wait a minute. We've got, Malcolm Brogdon recently tested positive. The big from Denver, his name eludes me.
Jokic
just tested positive. And that's to be expected. Like now these guys are getting tested. That's to be expected. But I still can't understand how you're going to have Disney staff going out of there.
Yeah, that is kind of eye-opening in that the players are having to sacrifice so much, and there are only so many people they can bring. They're forced to be there. If they leave, they have to go through a training regimen, and then you've just got this back door where people are going in and out on a day-to-day basis. It is weird, to say the least.
It is, and just today the NBPA and NBA announced that the league is going to do more of what the players have asked for, invest more in the black community, make sure they are hiring more black people, working more black vendors. And so they've asked for all that. And I'm wondering if at some point we will hear that the NBA and NBPA has talked to Disney and they've ironed out, not allowing the employees to come and go as they choose, because it's too risky with the way that Florida is seeing these spikes and COVID cases. And so I hope that they figure that part out, but it looks like basketball is going to take place. I mean, it was just a week ago, people were fearing that it wasn't going to happen. And now we haven't heard anything. The funny part is we haven't heard anything about Kyrie either. I mean, he was the center of attention for like a week in the media, and we haven't heard anything about him. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm disappointed but not surprised in the national media in that it hasn't really been reported that the group that Kyrie was sort of facilitating has been very successful in their aims. There was a lot of press about how disruptive and how he was going rogue and blowing up the process, and a lot of other coded language that was in there, but no one's really talking about the fact that they are getting these investments from the league in black communities. They are getting, the Lakers just made a hire for permanent staff to be educating the staff and to have community engagement with communities of color. So they're getting very, very real things from the NBA. And I think that without that meeting last week and without enough players saying, hey, wait a minute, let's talk, I don't think they get those kinds of concessions out of the league.
No, I agree. It's certainly being underreported right now. I think it was the NBPA's Twitter account that actually made the announcement, not Woj, not Shams, not any of the big guys out there. They didn't talk much about it. And so maybe I'll get around to putting a piece up on Lakers Central about that, because I was someone that defended Kyrie, and I thought that the way he was being talked about, by Stephen A. Smith, by Kendrick Perkins, by a number of other folks in the media.
It was ridiculous.
It was. They really threw him under the bus in a way that didn't need to happen. And I kept telling people he's an elected vice president of the NBPA. Like it's literally his job. And so people don't like to read the fine print, man. That's what it is. Let me get you out of here on this, Phil. How much of a loss is Avery Bradley?
It's significant, I think. He has a lot of intangibles that I think are really well defined by that clip from the Clippers game that everyone showed, where he took it from Pat Bev and laid it up and then had a few things to say about it. Like, he brings that energy to defense that will be missed. But I do think that there are enough guys with enough skills to step up and fill the spot. And that sort of has been the mantra this year. Bradley was out for a long time with an injury, and KCP really stepped up. And that was when he started to shine this year. Mm-hmm. So it is a loss, make no mistake, but I think it's something that they can plan to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, the Lakers are not going to be the only team that loses a key piece in a team's rotation. We're probably going to hear more about some of the other contenders where they may have players that might not want to go. And so this is what we're
facing. A big loss for Portland recently. That hasn't been talked about a lot.
No, I completely agree. And Ariza, another player that had to step away because of some family issues. I mean, we're dealing with the situation where there's still a pandemic going on amongst a number of other issues that these players are faced with. And so it won't be easy for any of these guys to go into a bubble, especially when their families can't join them for several weeks down the road. So we'll find out more and more. I think the Lakers tested their players yesterday. And it's a 24-hour test. So I would imagine at some point tonight, we'll start hearing, this player is positive, this player was negative, and then Lakers Twitter and NBA Twitter will act crazy about all that news, because we can't be rational. Yeah. So, Phil, thank you for coming on. Go ahead and plug another piece, man. I know you're working on something. You're always working on something.
I currently have two things in the pipeline. One of them is a profile on Portland that I'm working on in terms of potential playoff opponents. And another one is about, it's going to end up being a pretty big video about the comeback of zone defense in the NBA. So keep an eye out for that stuff.
Sounds good. Well, make sure you guys give Phil a follow. He's one of the best writers at Lakers Central. He also writes for Lakers UK. Shout out to Matt and those guys. You know who I am, folks. So until next time, I'm out.